Hello Internet, or perhaps I should say g'day, because today we're going to be looking at 1984 Ozplotation classic Razorback, which I haven't seen for years, so I'm psyched to see it. Directed by Russell Mulcahy, who for a time directed music videos for anyone who was anyone: Duran Duran, Elton John, Spandau Ballet. Just found out doing a wee bit of research. I do a tiny bit of research that he directed the video for the Buggles' Video Killed the Radio Star, which is the first video that was ever screened on MTV. But we all know him as the director of the cult classic and frankly amazing Highlander. And less so Highlander 2, but we won't mention that. He got screwed over with that. So we're going to go into the 1980s Australian outback for some hot, dusty, giant killer boar action, and frankly I can't wait. I'm going to try and make this review as spoiler free as possible, because if you're a fan of horror movies and you haven't seen this, you really should track it down and check it out. If you're a fan of low budget horror movies that really push beyond the boundaries of their budget with imagination, then you should check this out. If you're a fan of humans versus nature, you should really try and check this one out. As I mentioned in the intro, it was part of a wave of Australian cinema that's been termed Ozplotation since, and I believe it came about in the 70s with the introduction of an R rating in Australia, and it was a wave of cinema that carried on through the 70s through into the 80s, and you get similar examples in other countries. If a government decides to give tax breaks for a period for filmmakers, you'll see little cottage industries of B-movies and comedies, but usually horror movies turning up. So definitely think Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and things like that. Definitely in this case think Mad Max, because Mad Max was part of the Ozplotation wave as well. This film also fits into a nice little jigsaw of films from guys who were previously ostensibly music directors, who then moved into features, and you can see them flexing their muscles in their early movies. Russell Mulcahy here is most definitely a director of music videos, and you can see it in his style and his aesthetic. And you can see how he develops as a director, moving from this into Highlander, where he really flexes his muscles. But we've seen it in Alien 3 with David Fincher. Ridley Scott used to direct music videos, and you can see it in Blade Runner, the aesthetic of Blade Runner. And you can see it in the aesthetic of this. At times, yeah, it looks like a Duran Duran video, but when Mulcahy was directing his Duran Duran videos, Wild Boys definitely springs to mind. These were his calling cards to movies, and that's no bad thing. The movie that this shares most of its DNA with is Jaws, the greatest movie ever made. For many reasons. It's a giant boar in this case rather than a giant shark, but when you've got budgetary difficulties and your mechanical animal doesn't work, you have to figure ways around that to tell your story and keep it exciting. So you can't see the boar as much as perhaps they would have liked. It didn't work as well as perhaps they would have liked. Exactly the same as Bruce the Shark in Jaws. This is not the Australia of Nicholas Roeg's Walkabout. This is George Miller's Outback. This is Mad Max territory. You can very easily see this Australian outback in a few short years, probably in the space of a decade, turning into the hellish lawlessness of Mad Max, and then Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, and Beyond Thunderdome. There's tons of smoke, there's tons of backlighting. The cold opening is very reminiscent of the Cry in the Dark story, the Meryl Streep movie. Dingoes took my baby, except this time it's a giant fucking wild boar took my grandson. There's touches of American Werewolf in London in there as well, because a female journalist is who specialises in environmental and wildlife reports, has gone to this outback town to report on the slaughter of kangaroos and wallabies to be put into pet food. So there's a slight environmental aspect there, but when she gets to the town, it's the slaughtered lamb. It's the Americans turning up, her and her cameraman, and the bar goes quiet, and she's very much a stranger there, and there's threat and danger of the unknown, except rather than this bar being frequented by Brian Glover and Rick Mayall, it's frequented by people who in a few short years will be driving around the Mad Max outback, killing people for petrol. The Razorback of the title has turned up a couple of times very briefly. It's an amazing lurking presence in the background, but at the moment the real threat is from the kangaroo huntsmen themselves, who ostensibly out there. There's no law out there. They're their own law. But you've got this proto-Quint character, the grandfather of the kid that was taken right at the start of the movie, who now hunts boars, and that's all he does. And he's Quint. He's come face to face with this giant boar. No one believes him, and he goes out and he hunts boars 24/7. I am loving this movie. I'm just going to crack on with it. I went and got myself some Fosters, because what else are you going to drink when you're watching a fantastic Aussie B movie about a giant killer boar? So I'm just going to crack on with it. I'm loving it. Okay, so the majority of our second act deals with our hero. Very briefly introduced at the start. He's the fiance of the environmental reporter. She's gone missing, so he comes from New York to Australia to try and find out what happened to her. The story is she fell down a mine shaft. He doesn't believe it. A big chunk of this second act is classic hero's journey type stuff. If you're aware of the hero's journey and structuralism and stuff like that, this portion of the movie screams it, and I love it. He goes off with I'm going to stay spoiler free, but he goes off on a night hunt with the kangaroo hunters, and they ditch him there. So he has his hero's trials. He's alone in the outback for a night and a day. So this is very much the cave section of the hero's journey, where he has to face his fears and become the man he needs to be the hero in the end. This whole section is beautiful and surreal and neon and smoke and 80s. I won't do it justice with words. You'll have to see it. Some of the details of this kind of outback are fantastic. There's old battered rocking horses. There's a car in a tree. There are flares in the background firing off for no good reason other than that it looks freaking cool. He's chased by some boars. And this is his walkabout. So in Australia, the Aboriginal natives, when a boy was reaching manhood, he'd have to go out into the outback and survive on his own and come back, and that's how he attained manhood. And if he was lucky, he would commune with nature or their gods, and would get a message. So our hero here, he goes on his trial. He goes on his walkabout. His feet get all bloodied up. He gets cut, battered. He gets chased by by boars, and in one section of it he sees in the distance our Razorback, as he describes it, as large as a rhino. This thing is huge, but this is weirdly also his sort of spirit guide, his totem animal. The presence of our big Razorback scares off the other boars that are sort of tracking him, and he eventually finds his way to a farm where there's a woman staying there who's got a government grant to research the boars, and she tracks them. But she hears his story, so she calls out our Quint guy, because the whole town thinks that he killed his grandson. He wants to kill this boar to prove that he didn't. The scene is set. Our American guy is our Brody. The government research lady is our Hooper from Jaws, because she takes a dart gun to Quint, and he's like, I can't, I'm not going to be able to kill it with a dart gun, and she says, no, but if you can get a tracking device in it, we can track it. This is fantastic sort of B-movie Jaws in the outback with a massive killer wild boar the size of a rhino. The Quint character, I'm sorry, I can't remember the character's name. He says, it's on the box because the line is so cool. It has two states of being, dangerous or dead. So now we've got our pieces on the board. We've got our Brody character, our Hooper character, our Quint character. We've got our giant boar, and thrown into the mix, we've got the crazy kangaroo hunters who work at the pet canning factory, which is just some sort of weird pet factory, dead skinned kangaroo corpses hanging everywhere version of the Sawyer household in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. This film is fucking excellent. We're going into the final act where everything is going to collide. The boar hunter, the boar, the kangaroo hunters, the husbands, and this is a great film. That was an absolute blast. So some final thoughts. If you're not going to mind a film where the mechanical animal sometimes looks a little hokey, then you're going to love this movie. Look, Jaws is my favourite movie of all time, and I can overlook the fact that when it finally jumps up onto the orca, it doesn't look the greatest. Do I want Steven Spielberg to go back and special edition it? No, don't touch it. It's the ways in which he worked around what he had, the way he used what he had, and the same is true here. Sometimes the Razorback looks like a big static model. Sometimes it looks freaking great. It's the imagination and invention on display here. This is a director who's got experience. He's got a very strong visual aesthetic that he's bringing over from his music videos into this. The Australia of this movie looks gorgeous, but it looks like Australia in a way that you've never seen it before. If you like B movies, if you like low budget horror movies, if you're not bothered about a body count or hard gore, then check this out. This is a gem of a movie, and I can't rate it highly enough. Does it have its flaws? Of course it's got its flaws. All movies have flaws. This is fun. It's gonna look unlike any movie you've seen before. It's gonna feel unlike any movie you've seen before. It shares DNA with other movies. There are nods here and there. Mulcahy even puts in a little shooting star into the sky right near the start of the movie, which I can only take to be a direct nod and homage to Steven Spielberg, who used to put shooting stars in his movies. So it's a movie that knows where it comes from. but it's a hell of a lot of fun. The real villains of the piece are the kangaroo hunters, the two brothers, and you get some superb gonzo performances from them, and gonzo is absolutely the right word. Can't recommend it highly enough. Don't expect perfection, but expect Australian exploitation and fun, and expect a boar the size of a rhino. If you haven't seen it before, check it out.